I have said in all of this time, going ahead means improving from where you are. Does not mean to stress out yourself completely, stress out the systems, stress out the people. Would not make any sense. People are also built up as a consequence of all entire civilizational development. Uh, the way how it has been done, socialism in last century was not appropriately done. To kill everything that was accomplished so you can bring it everything to in hands of working class, they're not worth it. And they will never be worth it. The most ordinary people will never be worthy killing everyone above them. Let's make that as a rule for all of the times. The lowest of the people would never be worthy killing everyone above them. That is the highest history lecture you should learn and stop repeating it over and over and over again. Who it is you on earth to cut out each time the civilizational accomplishment for what it takes millenniums times to build up, just to emerge you obscure, naked, wild, and primitive with the absolute entitlement to all of the above. What nonsense, what a foolishness. Only narrow mind dimensions, only the ones that do not know how to think, can accept such logic. As a result, today, systems have declined enormously, and we have found ourselves living in the world as there was not much existing or living before. And it is much easier to accomplish and to improve with intelligent people and people that are above you, that are within the hierarchy of functioning of the systems. It is much more success, much more functional, much more rewarding to engage in communication with them rather than to think that you should be killing them. Because it is not about to take their place. It is about that the system functions to provide for yourself justifiable reward. As you cannot take their place. That does not come like in some kind of monkey game just by holding the higher branch of the tree. High hierarchy means higher skill and higher capacity and higher ability to function in the society. High level of comprehension, high level of functionality within the regional spectrum of affairs, which are interconnected. Ability to not just communicate to people, but to know how to relate to people. And that is why imperial, mixed bloodlines will always have value for every nation. Because you can't exist like just stand alone and surrounded by all different nations and you can't connect to them because, well, above all, they see you as an enemy. That is what, for example, that is why any event, any situation where there is Nazism growing end up as a fiasco. Because you disconnect yourself from the surrounding territories, and that is an unnatural way of existing in a region. You have to have international relationships with all of your neighbors. And that normally is going to get on stage mixed bloodlines. because you need to bring the sentiment in order to connect to someone, in order to bring that kind of dialogue. We need to understand events. Another momentum here is that you create negative kingdoms, and they start to spread evilness, and in such way no one wins actually. So I would not talk here about hierarchy as much as I would talk about character of kingdoms, character of nations, character of systems. And here you don't end up blaming rotten children for being rotten. You blame the ones that are creating such systems, where you appoint rotten children to the highest of the positions, or in other way around. You compromise them while they're ambitiously moving higher to their personal development and for the benefit of functioning of the systems, of course. You compromise them. And why would you compromise someone's walking to the top, from where he or she needs to shine to the rest of the humanity? It takes plenty of personal sacrifice and plenty of energy and stamina to get to a certain point of functioning. Plenty of sacrifice. You see, some of us never get in terms with what they needed to sacrifice to accomplish some degree of development. As for example, I'm never going to forgive myself for sacrificing my time spending with kids. I would live second time my life down only for one reason: to spend all of my available time with my kids. And that is the main advice I'm going to give to human beings. As we start living and then we forget the life we live, it is about us before it is to be about anyone else. It is foolish to think that you're born to live life for someone else. No, that's nonsense. Everyone live in the purpose of fulfilling their own existence, and then we relate to each other, and the system happens out of us relating to each other and purpose in admitting to realize ourselves in the best possible way. So therefore, here the subject matter of individual life is self-realizing yourself in the best, and that does not exclude your personal happiness. And that will never exclude your personal happiness, because everything else fall apart. If you sacrifice your personal happiness, you become dead walking body. You're dead walking body. That is what my father was. That is what people want to make out of me. They walk equally as it was Elizabeth I. When you see it, she looked like a corpse, a walking corpse. So that very very old-fashioned habit or formula to make leader to kill a leader, to kill life energy in him in order so he can or she can become servant and devoting everything to you, is nothing of humane. And no one should see and expect of leaders something like that, or of any other human being. In contrary, we should each, as a practical human, live by the most sacred rule of our species, and that is self-realization. But you kill people in any single regard. You want to take everything from them, and then you now help me. Is it presume that I'm not supposed to be alive? And that is what my sister was doing, dragging my father in her corridors and using him to help her out on account of everyone else. Enormous selfishness of an animal. I would never imagine that such thing that was pretending to be my apprentice would have developed into. Such little predator living in your life. Dragging my father there so she can use him to take everything for her. She married her daughters immediately, have grandchildren. She fulfilled her life. On what price? On what price? That little creature is walking ahead of me. So, speaking of helping out someone, is we are speaking about me gaining my place on this planet. That is the only way you can talk to me, and no any other way. I have found Serbia on place of evilness. I have found Serbia not desperate but evil. That is something I never thought I'm going to find there. The way how they have behaving in all of this entire event was embarrassing for the entire fame of what Serbia is or Serbia was. They just embarrassed Serbia. I will never ever think of Serbia as a glorious people. I just wonder how on earth they have managed to build for themselves such image. I could have not find nothing glorious about these people. My father was, yes, generous person, but he was not exactly Serb, 100%. And we cannot assign to Serbia more credit than they are worth. We cannot assign to nations credit from imperial subjects while they are not recognizing the imperial history of the territory. If they are not recognizing imperial history of the territories, they cannot attach on themselves that much of a glorious features. Because glorious features do not emerge from the ground. They get created within time. It takes plenty of time until you reach that level of capacity to become that kind of status relating, accomplishment relating, integrity relating, impersonification. Because integrity costs lots of money. And money in political terms require stamina, require presence, but require also skill, require capacity. So yeah, it would be always day and night walking on these territories. And it was never just a night or just about knights, without to be about monarchs as well. So glory cannot go to the knights without to be remembered to what they associate or attach, and out of what house they have been created out of what house they have been crafted, and who has been crafting them. My father would be nothing without my mother, and how my mother saw him, and what he was to my mother. My father existed as such through the prism of the eyes of my mother. The eyes of my mother created my father. And what he created with his eyes, was that glorious? Was that something that Serbia today should and can celebrate? Do you understand my point, Serbia? If you exist as a shadow or as a moon, not as a sun, then it is time to learn what that means in political terms. In political terms means that someone needs to make you or to craft you in order to become as glorious as you have remembered yourself. What you have not remembered is that it takes someone else to craft you like that. And my mother has shown to my father what it is via my father. She has shown how, she was the one building him, and I was the one as well, building him even more. But let's do not pretend that we have not understood what we have been building in the order. I know that they go as that far as to say, yeah, that is why we all know what means night. Oh yes, that is not what I was having on mind. He was a prince in England. In England, they have been princes. I wasn't thinking of anything less than something like that. Now, why people attach such words and what's behind that, now that's a different story. I don't think that that is I would not like to think that way about Serbia, or in the way how I talked about Serbia. It is more that I talk here about I was just talking about different kind of myself. I was just talking about myself, and then I reflected in Serbia, and I saw that part of me as a Serbian somehow. That's my entire secret. The entire secret in mathematics of how it worked for me, giving to Serbia that much credit. I was just looking at me. And then reflecting on my father out of how I wanted him to be. Yeah, it's idealism to its core. That is what we do here. That is what this place is about. It is making people, crafting them. Like Demi Moore was doing in that movie with Ghost, Patrick Swayze. Yeah, that is what you do to people. That is what my kind clearly was doing to people. Obviously, that is not exactly about making people physically, but about crafting them into a human being of a special order, of special integrity, of special dignity. That is how they become dignitaries. We have to build someone into dignitary in order to be dignitary. I have shown you how I built dignitary, how my mother was building dignitary. Yes, we are the builders of it. And you go in Serbia and you give us your reward. Well, we are the house of certification. We are the one giving rewards and certificates and various titles. The house of titles is our house, not your house. And I cannot give you that because you would not know what to do with it. because then we are going to lose the skill, we are going to lose the substance of it. Because it's not just about to declare a title, but it's about the standards and criteria. You get the house of titles, and you open door to Mongolians and to all Japan, to all China, and to all of them gangs and mafias from there. And start talking about Indians and start jumping with Maoris here. And you still think you have the house of titles. And you believe that that's your house? I just explained to you how far and how impossible that is. As today we are talking about continuation of our civilizational accomplishments. And we are not going to allow our houses to be lost. These are lighthouses. It is the most sacred event on the planet. And it is not of people to randomly try to reach something like that. As you have said, you will need to be called, or you will need to be given a title. You cannot take it for yourself or by yourself. But before you talk about who is going to call whom, we have to clarify exactly that. Yes, who is calling whom and for purpose of what? So let's answer first that question. Now, who gave a vow 15 years? And who started to talk about standards? And who is providing here the historic heritage platform before to launch a work? And what historic heritage platform I am providing? You cannot allow yourself to forget that, and you talk to me as I am from your perspective, Serbia. You cannot continue ignoring the fact that there is Imperial Plateau south of your territories. You cannot continue to ignore that and then expect some kind of international validation, and then you end up dancing with Maoris and Indians in America. Serbia, you end up being wiped out. You continue that way, you will be wiped out. Now it's time to get serious. Serbia. Number one, notice with what and whom you're dealing. This is first level imperial degree. You don't talk about me, Serbia. I talk about you. So let's notice what are the consequences of building Yugoslavia, where Macedonia was on their knees in front of the mighty Belgrade. And let's notice how far that mighty Belgrade was nothing else but a tribunal city, Celtic dominion, Irish first degree dominion. And let's notice for how long period of time these structures, these formations, have been having direct access to ancient plateau of South Macedonia, of Macedonian Greece, of ancient Macedonian, ancient Greece, and North Egypt. We have here the strongest imperial basin, including Middle East further, Mesopotamia region, the strongest ancient basin, completely under the feet of Belgrade, of Celts of Ireland. Now, there are Celts living on various territories, but when it is in question Belgrade, we talk about specifically Irish, American Irish, having specifically, that is exactly, very specific structure, which reflects equally in New Zealand, Australia, and reflects in America. And the White House of America is extremely tribunal, profoundly tribunal, and crafted exactly by such setting. That is what makes America today to be very much country, the most duality-driven territory than any other political territory at the moment. I would say also, given the importance of America in the recent civilizational development. And what is the impact of such a situation now for the entire world? This is that you have a worm in the apple or what? I might call it a green event, green worm in the apple or what? That is being Celtic Irish in the Imperial apple of Western American civilizational development. American civilizational accomplishment is downgrading because of that. I'm not willing here to give too much credit to Macedonians because they happen to be the second garbage in this entire saga that happened to me here while I'm developing my work. Macedonians have been the second garbage. I'm sorry for not choosing better word. I think it would save me a couple of sentences of description. Although obviously that's not going to be avoided. Let's describe why I'm using that word. Should I? Or maybe I should just save myself additional effort. It has become so evident. That is where, for example, say equally my sister's behavior, which is signing from some kind of Russian Macedonian backing. They do not. My sister's backing is not Serbia, it's Russia and Macedonia. Yes, they are backing my sister. Well, I'm going to say, Serbs at least went out there into at least mentioning, providing some church to my mother. Macedonians have not done even that. Macedonians have not done even that step. So if I compare between the two, who is more glorious? You end up saying, yes, Serbs are more glorious. Because the previous are not even there. Are not even there. Now, how is that possible? How is that possible? A territory that associates itself to present days, to their ancient history, not having capacity, knowledge, or sense how to live by it. And year 1, year 2, year 4, year 5, year 6, year 7, 15 years, day after day, it's not enough proof for you to understand where exactly is your place as we speak. Just a couple of months ago, some of your lost, disoriented fools was rolling his body without any comprehension to whom on earth he is talking. Why? Because that green worm and disease sitting in Ireland is wiping out and washing out every mind rolling and existing on earth. Just wiping it out like there is no brain in a human body. And how can desperate live their history when they are that much desperate that they have forgotten even who they are, what they are, and how on earth they can remember that they have been something but they have been nothing? You cannot bring in memory something when you are nothing. You bring memory when you have a memory, not when you don't have it. That's my message to ancient Macedonians. That's my message to Ireland as well. Therefore, I'm going to continue to talk about imperial bloodlines that are walking via certain territories. But what is most important here is that you cannot speak about such events without to each time have your eye on the specific characters. Because in human, everything is about very specific human. We are humans enough, I would assume, that would be aware what difference makes one human versus another human. It is human is irreplaceable. People often want to say exactly opposite, and that is mistake. Any single human is irreplaceable because they are not two humans alike. You might have in perspective something like driving a boat or something, but it doesn't have to be that captain. Some other captain can be a boat. Yeah, but we don't talk here about the captain. We talk about the boat itself, or in other words, it's not appropriate to say even a boat because it is such a mechanical, artificial, made-up thing. We talk here about very specific functions by very specific identity in a very specific way, and that is irreplaceable. It is simply irreplaceable. And stop thinking of human in such light manner as it is. It is not going to be that much end of the world. No, it's not going to be end of the world, but it's going to be one more step towards it or away from it. That's for sure. And in time dimension, one step means also a direction. And direction is everything. Yes, well, as one human can be as that important as in what direction entire world is going to move. For me, that is rather irreplaceable than replaceable. So stop talking of human in wrong ways. Learn how to speak about human in correct ways, please. When you get to the point of value, you actually bring some kind of sense to such discussions as well. You end up living in the world where the valuation system is completely upside down. Who on earth is going to reset that? How many people today walk on this planet that can reset that? And look at you allowing yourself to write off someone, like it matters nothing, like you have something like that in tons. India today is talking about producing new generation of chips, like they can really promise they are going to produce them in tons. What on earth you're talking about? And how on earth these people can even allow themselves to get into daring to speak like that? That is going to demonstrate how far this planet is dangerously losing its grasp with reality. Yes, exactly. If words have any meaning, and to save me from shouting, I'm going to repeat: the world is losing its grasp with reality, reaching dangerous levels. In any single regard. If India can think that they can produce people as myself in tons and sell them to the world, I'm going to say that is a lie, and you should not have right to think about certain situations like that, and you do not have right to bring such kind of information to the world, because it's misinformation, and the consequences to such misinformation can be enormous for the planet, for the entire planetary development. And would India or any other country have a right to dictate the future development of this planet in such terms, as a matter of such light-minded, business-defined decision-making? I'm going to find here, therefore, the consequences of Serbia taking over the lead in recent time, I'm going to say probably since Second World War. That would be already 70 years. Second World War never ended, and fascism never ended. And Serbia empowering itself on this planet never ended. Germany was complete production factory of Serbian machinery, where human was worth nothing. Serbia continued to treat human as it is worth nothing. Serbia continued to speak of human as in terms of chips. Serbia continued to be Tesla-driven approach. And dangerously accepting today people of such alignment to get closer to a power and to bring them in England. Well, I have been willing to give credit to Nikola Tesla as to a grandpa. They're escalating entire fascism out of him and bringing fascism of Serbia in last 70 years all over the planet. And yes, Putin was right when he started to talk about fascism. He probably still managed to say it in the way how I could have not said it because I was too close. And he was probably being from a distance, so he could have noticed it better. I give credit to Putin for noticing fascism exactly in the size in which it exists and which I could have not seen it because it was too closely walking to me. But I noticed it yesterday when India started to talk about chips with such a deviated mind that makes you to get scared. When you see craziness or mental deformation, mental unclarity, going that far, you get scared. How far craziness of human can go away? Because there is nothing else there in that statement but demonstration with this production of chips, demonstration of fascism walking on the planet on grand scale. Entire economy today, I'm going to notice, is continuation of German fascism-driven economy and never stop to be that. We are talking about Nazism and fascism on grand scale walking over the entire economy of the present times, and that is why the world is as it is. Notorious, senseless, cruel, and dirty. Because these kind of people have taken over the control over England. They have taken control. Of course, Tesla was walking in England like for good morning tea. Have taken control over England, have taken control over America. Fascism and Nazism. Putin was right. It's having such a grand scale that every one of us should be getting concerned about it. It is going as that far as speaking about production of chips. Look, the language they have chosen. Now I want that same Serbia to tell me, can they really promise to this world that they can produce in tons people of my kind? And if they cannot confirm that statement, then they should be the one to start being afraid now, and from now. And the rest of us should notice the size of the disease we are to deal with and we have to confront. I wanted to talk about principal imperial bloodlines, and that is the stone I found right there in front of my feet, and I was about not to notice it. So Serbia as evil country, Serbia as evilness, Serbia as epitome of evil. How I could have not noticed that right in front of my nose. Serbia as epitome of evilness on the entire planet. Serbia as evil country. Now you understand the size of your problem. how you're going to solve it, Serbia. Yes, so let's notice also that today China and India are developing into highest production of chips. So maybe it's time that we notice a real definition of yin and yang of China as a symbol, as a reference to wealth. It is very straightforward, as black and white brings us directly to position Serbia and Macedonia. It is central word. They have been using as a plus and minus, as a matter of conflict, out of what clearly the ones that were cashing out are today themselves, and obviously sharing with India the cake on exactly black and white mode. So we might talk about ancient agreement. We don't talk about, while these two are preferring to pretending they are going to go in war. Actually, the war they are talking about is plateau Serbia and Macedonia. So whether they are using proxy war for their, so to protect their great population, I can imagine. In any case scenario, maybe they're exporting as a chips their own population. I mean, that certainly is going to provide promise, exporting something into towns. However, fighting the two, or the inhibited and very irritating fight between the dog and the cat of black and white Serbia and Macedonia stage will need to finally stop, and finally it will need to be understood we don't talk about a dog and a cat, neither about black or white. We talk about territories where humans are living, that are in quite of a geographic proximity, are sharing same land, and all of the history and all of the historic times have very similar historic influences, have been crafted under very similar historic influences in the eternity of matters, and it has critical momentum for us here to stop that conflict between these territories and to recalibrate the entire territory in direction in which it will secure world stability, as it turned to be. That world stability can happen only from territories like that, and from no any other, really. But here, as we zoom further, it is to be noticed that the structure of the historic heritage does matter. To get specific about matters does matter. To recognize the making of people does matter. To recognize what makes difference between one making of and another making does matter. And above, to recognize that memory as a historic heritage matter does matter as well. I have proven today how memory, how genetic memory works. And it is not provided here for entertainment purposes, but for purposes of historic recalibration. But I'm not going to leave to let Serbia out of leash as long as Serbia is associated to lack of beauty, and in Russia, from a Russia perspective, I become Madame Bovary, and Serbia get full speed engaged to assist the Russian theatrical performance playing on me, Madame Bovary. That is going to question how far we can talk about that region being split in that many small parts as it is today, to the extent that the territories completely disassociated themselves from their own memories, their own identity charting, and their own play. These are important words. Are explaining properly what I claimed, what I need to notice again. Russia is playing, and what that is going to tell us about Russia. It's going to explain how far Serbia also have forgotten the territory of its own kingdom and how that kingdom functions. So to the extent that if it is possible for us to comprehend Britannia today or Great Britain as one territory, it should be possible also to comprehend entire Balkan Peninsula all the way to Greece, therefore in Macedonia, as one unit. If we can talk about Great Britain and Ireland, in Great Britain and Ireland, then we should be talking about Belgrade of Dunab, from Dunab all the way to Greece and all the way to Adriatic Sea, as one kingdom. That is the memory to which I plug. That is the memory to which all we plug. And what comes out of it is that we cannot split that kingdom within its own principal functioning. So I was correct to, while speaking of amphitheater, still to talk about forest and backyards as source land, as land of real birth, as land of real mental configuration, and then reach the amphitheater in Greece. We talk about one same place. Also, there is scientifically somehow going on in scientific circles information that our planet actually is increasing in size because it is residing on enormous plateau of water, and that is also increasing in volume. Now, increased volume of water is going to create increased territorial surface. On the surface, increased certain parts will start somehow dividing, whereas rivers will emerge over the, it would increase in volume. As rivers increase in volume, the territory departs or the territory enlarges. So in any case scenario, we are talking about one same story here. My identity confirms that we are talking about one same story. Now it is more logical to play it in Britannia because it is a smaller island. But the fact is that the original land where that history has been written is actually somewhere else. And in that context, we talk about replicas in Britannia and on Westlands. This is important now to be understood as how it's going to drive the entire politicking. First of all, politicking does not go from the ground to the top, it goes from the top to the ground. And I'm sick to talk about people setting me on daily ground in whatever draw they want as they are holding the top. Well, we are all should be aware I'm the one holding the top and you're displacing yourself as you wish because you found yourself in some of your gamings. But let's do not get confused here, and then let's do not lose perspective here. I am the one declaring and holding the top as we speak. And then you're reporting to me on daily basis how you're going to hold your chairs? Well, first of all, you should be passionate enough to wait until I give you a chair. As you have said, you don't self-invite yourself in someone else's game. Yes, exactly. This is my game. This is my mental design. You just mentioned it's my design, and now all of a sudden, oh, but we can go into another design. No, we are talking about design that happened in absolute historic terms. And design upon which this entire planet exists. I'm just plugging into memory of our creation and what defines us within that creativity. What kind of design you are talking about? The design you are talking about, it has happened. And I'm today holding the top of it. Well, because I am holding the top of it. Because I'm the one issuing certificates. Or because it's God-given position. So yeah, I'm being invited by gods. By my creation. By the way how I have been created. And in my own work, I'm not going to be replaceable as you have done to Steve Jobs. You're yet to be judged on the entire Steve Jobs saga as well. But you're not going to repeat same shit making on me here. In other words, you are not the one that defines presence in this given time. You are not defining the presence. The one that is defining the presence of that historic heritage is myself, not yourself. Allow yourself noticing that. As our entire realm exists in the mental projection that we are going to project it. As well, I am the one projecting today that mental dimension, not yourself. So it is my mental trajectory, not design, but my mental trajectory. Correct yourself. You don't talk about design, you talk about mental trajectory. Well, I am doing it, and it is mental trajectory of my mind. So you're not going to place me or displace me. I am to appoint you if and when that happens. As of relieving the places of this kind of functionality is legal and legal duty, which means I have right to use army and police to get you out from the buildings. Yes, that is where we are right now. That is what will need to happen. Since I'm assisting here the planetary platforms for quite some time, and mainstream platform for sure, I expect now police and army and police to take out the people from the buildings where they do not function per described and expected functioning from such kind of buildings. And then we are, ladies and gentlemen, on second page, that is who it is to be invited or chosen. Yes, it starts with who is to choose or invite and in what context. Get yourself to your sense, to normal senses. Get yourself to normal senses. I will notice here that when equally as myself, when my father would realize the scope on which Serbia is playing, and the character that Serbia started to play on the field, he would be returning to my mother, because the character that Serbia brought on the field, within that of their movement of awakening of Serbia, were not even nearby strong enough to bring that sense of substance my father would be associated to, or would be consciously or subconsciously tending to align with. So he would not be tending to go to Catholicism or to Vatican, because he would have absolutely no ground where he would associate his soul with such matters. He would be returning to my mother. That means he would be returning to Macedonia. And someone then translates that into going to Catholicism. Returning to Macedonia should not be translated as going to Catholicism. Therefore, I'm going to find Macedonia profoundly defined by one mega character, and that is not, we cannot notice here any Pharaoh of Egypt, but we can notice Themis. It is certainly one character, one statue, and one sun, shine. But it is not Pharaoh of Egypt, any other but Themis. How much we are not going to talk about Cleopatra itself. Would it not be the blind Themis actually blind Cleopatra? Are we not talking here about Cleopatra? And would we not have that flag of Macedonia and that sun on Macedonian flag as a reference to Cleopatra rather than to any other pharaoh of Egypt? As why we would be having a reference to any other pharaoh of Egypt in Macedonia, where we all talk about the most famous queen of Macedonia, that is being Macedonian queen, that is being Cleopatra, and then we all talk about Themis, which is of course translation of Cleopatra into world of Westerlays, of Ireland and the rest. So actually Cleopatra becomes Themis when she goes on the west side. She goes on the west side. We talk about one same identity here that is being translated differently. Therefore, the flag of Macedonia and sun, reference of sun, where I also am talking for quite some time in that region about strong mother figure. We can conclude in that particular political reference book cannot be no any other but Cleopatra itself. Therefore, I'm going to repeat again. The flag of Macedonia would be in reference to Cleopatra. A Macedonian pharaoh in Egypt would be Cleopatra. That flag would be in reference to Cleopatra. Therefore, Themis is Cleopatra, as it cannot be any other but a pharaoh. That woman cannot be any other but a pharaoh. A Macedonian pharaoh at the time was Cleopatra. That is mathematics on political stage. Accordingly, we conclude a flag of Macedonia is in reference to Cleopatra. My verdict for today. Why is this important to me? Because I am bringing Olympia, daughter of Cleopatra. Although I very often rather find myself in protocol Cleopatra, because I bring the structure, much more complex structure. My mother was more on the surface of things. I don't know really. I think she was much more a robust approach. My mother is more like Russian approaches. Russia, they're known by much more robust approach. They're not going that much into sophistication. They have the level of robustness in their presence. That's a very accommodated way of how we think about Russians and everything they make. I mean, as a typical definition of that Russian profile of a bear. I would not sit Cleopatra exactly in that body. I would find Cleopatra closer to this kind of performance, and if she was not, then there was maybe more of a glimpse of it or a promise of it. In any case scenario, I'm going to find Olympia, Cleopatra, Themis, very much the corridors upon which would emerge the Macedonian flag as it is today. And I find my performance exactly in such corridors. It is important to say here my mother is Themis, or it is therefore Cleopatra if we understand her more closer to my mother character, because it gives me this kind of sophistication and humanity, sense of humanity, and sense of building a warm feeling of a house and a warm feeling of identity and integrity. On the other side, I bring the scrupulousness, the sharpness, the attack, the instinct of attack, to attack, the instinct of fighter, the predator. Short thinking is not thinking. It is instinct. You can't call short thinking thinking. It's not a thinking. It's instinct. If it is a thinking, it takes time. But you cannot say quick thinker. No, it's instinctive reaction, you want to say. Well, yeah, you call it instinct. So my instinct is if I have bigger sword, I'm going to see a situation when I walk on the street instinctively, as where is my instinct. I am a Pharaoh. Now we read the same situation on the same street in the same way. I will need to zoom, however, here to highlight, therefore, couple of issues. First of all, the fact that when we talk about Europe, imperial heritage on the territories today, as it is, especially in regard of ancient Macedonia, all that we can see is a tail remained from what today is, as for example, Democratic Party in America, or what is the establishment in Europe, especially in England. We today see that that entire concept function at the point of its tail mark, accordingly very much ready to compromise and sacrifice positions for the benefit of the headquarter, which is somewhere else. Another momentum is that we certainly talk about transition and lost in translation event that would happen in approximately millennium or 2 millenniums of moving or from that central plateau towards the Western establishment, and in the process losing the substance as well itself. So if we focus now on the territorial charging, therefore, and much more and more absolute levels, what we return to is natural interconnectedness of the local territories of that ancient region that continue to exist, first of all, in interconnection. That is second momentum I want to point out, that in the on much more absolute levels, we do not find here territory separated. In contrary, as you can see even in that in this image from Pella, ancient city of ancient Macedonia, you see reference to Parthenon, to these columns that are standing as a reference to governors at these earlier governing buildings. So we talk here about a region that is profoundly blue before it is to be yellow. And we will never get that in such separated politicking as it is happening here, where territories are so much split in different political parties that you actually lose the perspective here. And perspective is actually building families, building societies, and functioning within ongoing development as a region. We don't get that. We don't get building societies. We don't get building families. We don't get building societies. We don't get building the regional development as a matrix. Oh, that sounds like high mathematics now. but look where we are. Look who is doing the work today. Look what kind of education I am enclosing. And well, I am actually bringing this planetary level of conversation in the times where this kind of conversation is critical to recognize where, on what parameters global peace and the future of this planet resides, and on what parameters we are losing it all. So, for me, or I would rather say, in general perspective, the correct answer here still remains to be region and territories, rather than to see them as a tail mark to some establishment somewhere else and to relate to the event as a tail mark. In the reality of the situation, we talk rather about disposition of the regions, and historic heritage belong to the regions and attaches to the regions in some kind of, with that sense of much more, some kind of absolute dimension, and you just simply lose from perspective that you even need to talk about some establishment sitting somewhere in America or sitting somewhere in England. And on the scale, which human life is to be saved? The answer is very much to the facts, very much to the specifics. On more absolute levels, the answer would be we want to save human lives. And this work happens in intention to save human lives and to avoid war as a scenario for future of this planet. And that is the best answer you can get. If you want to bring it into specifics, it will be the answer as specific as it gets. So no one can ask for impossible, but rather to provide, to be taken some much more objective perspective and to value human life equally as your own, as equally on the other, sitting on the other side of whatever line or whatever equation you have drawn in a given time and space.